And hello, everyone, and welcome to Rich Sports Talk, your home for all the latest and greatest on the New York Jets. It was a chaotic draft weekend. Undrafted free agency is still going on, but the New York Jets have an opportunity to continue to fill out the 2025 roster, and we will talk about that today here on Rich Sports Talk. Again, if you're new to the channel, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button so you don't miss any of our latest content. And of course, make sure to reach out in the live stream. We want to hear from you. And if you are missing us in the live stream, don't worry. You can always comment in the video and I will get back to you. So the free agency is going to wind up again. So the Jets today have an opportunity to continue to build out this roster. And I think this is a very interesting part for the Jets because this is the part of free agency where now comp picks will not come into play. And it's clear that part of the Jets' strategy was to at least earn compensation picks or not lose those compensatory picks next year. So now with all those parameters off the table, we can look at a couple of intriguing targets for the Jets, mostly on the defensive side. There's a couple offensive players in there as well. Again, I'll add my thoughts on those potential free agent additions. We'll go over some of the intriguing undrafted free agents the Jets added over the last 48 hours, but we'll dive right into it. If you have a free agent that you want the Jets to go after, let us know in the chat. I know some of you already were before the show, like Tony Alexio. I hope they get free agent players this time instead of bench players. So we know that Tony wants this team to invest in there. So let's look at the free agents. Now, mostly I think a lot of these free agents are pieces on the defense right now. The two free agents that do stick out to me on the offensive side of the ball, because I don't think there's really a great tight end option unless this team trades for Dallas Goedert or a Mark Andrews. But again, I'm not sure how much assets they're willing to go up, and especially because they just drafted a starting tight end with the 42nd pick. I think two intriguing players, and I talked to especially one of them, is Keenan Allen. I understand Keenan Allen is getting up there, but with a rookie quarterback last year, with a quarterback he didn't have a rapport with, and with injuries last year, still managed to come away with 70 catches for 700 yards and 7 touchdowns. To me, he would be this team's number 2 wide receiver right away. And then you have Amari Cooper at 30. Again, didn't really get on a great rapport with Josh Allen, but I think is an intriguing option. The two problems with both of those free agents is I'm very curious to see if they're interested in the Jets for two reasons. Number one, it seems like the Jets are going to be an offense that's not going to want to throw the ball too much. Even though they would get the majority of the target share, you wonder, are they looking to try to either get one more contract and have some good film to put on tape for free agency in 2026? And the other thing you have to wonder with Keenan Allen and Amari Cooper, are they going to hold out for basically a better team or a playoff team to compete? The other interesting free agents I've seen on here, Raquan Davis, the defensive tackle, 27 years old, 325 pounds. To me, he kind of fits just because he's still in that 27 age range, still young enough where he's still in his prime and a bit productive for the defensive tackle position. I think he would be a nice addition, especially at the size. There's a couple of defensive tackles I saw thrown out, but I don't think they fit. And I want to explain why. I've seen a lot of, especially on Jet social media, about Fuli Fatukasi, bringing him back. The thing with Fatukasi, and I do think he was a good player with the Jets, is he's going to be 30. And the two things that really stick out to me, he has been declining in the run blocking grade. The run defense grade. If you look at his run defense the last year, it has gone down. You wonder if it was because of injury, but you also wonder, is it age? I don't think they're going to take a risk on those guys. And the same thing, Jordan Phillips, it's 32, but he could be an interior rotational defensive pass rusher. I like what he can bring to the table. One guy I would keep an eye on is Zadarius Smith at 32. Again, older player, but a former Detroit Lion, someone that understands the system. And when you look at the defensive room right now, the edge position severely needs still some upgrades and still needs some role pieces. I think Smith would be a very nice rotational piece, a guy that can come in early, a guy that can help, especially with Jermaine coming off the Achilles. So I think he's a guy to keep an eye on, especially because he is a well-known addition in this defense. He knows this defense. He knows Aaron Glenn, and I do think that is a target to keep an eye on. On the defensive side, too, I'm very curious, especially now at the safety position. It seems like the safety position and corner position are overloaded almost at this point. So people wanting Justin Simmons, I think, might be a little bit disappointed. Again, some other safety options if they want some more experience. Justin Blackmon, Quandre Diggs, Kavon Wallace are still available. One player that really intrigues me a little bit is Isaiah Simmons, the former first-round pick, the linebacker at 26 years old. I'm curious to see if the Jets will bring him in. He's someone, again, when you're looking for the type of guys they want younger guys to build around. And despite what he's been the last couple of years, I still think Simmons could be a fit to that mold. A couple of these guys were a bit older, but at least had experience within this defense. Simmons, to me, is still that youngish age, and he could give you someone that allows you to develop the linebacking prospect from Miami a little bit slower. It allows you to, if you have a problem with Quincy, especially if there's a holdout, it gives you a little bit of flexibility. So those are a couple of the free agent options out there. I don't think this team is going to add a running back. Again, I'll talk about some of the undrafted picks with that. They could surprise us and go interior defense, offensive tackle, maybe a backup tackle. I do think that they feel pretty comfortable with their depth chart. Tight end, again, I don't think they're going to upgrade that unless they go out in the trade market, which is, again, still possible. But there was also some intriguing guys that they brought in on the undrafted market. Before I get to that, let me get to some of your comments. Again, Super Chat to jump to the front of the line. Melvin, of course, I'm drafted in the wide receiver Skinner, undrafted free agent. Is he any good? The thing with Skinner is he's definitely a big body. He's a very raw prospect. I think he's going to be someone that's going to struggle to get on the practice squad, if I'm honest, Melvin. I don't know why, but apparently my camera seemingly has gone down. Hold on one second. And it looks like I'm back. So, again, I don't know if there was a cut in the picture there. If there was, my apologies. I don't know what that was. But, again, I think we'll get into Skinner a little bit more, too. Again, hit the like button and give us a subscribe. I mean, Matthias, money talks. Again, I think the Jets should definitely look very good. Triple J and Will McDonald will be great off the edge. Definitely agree with that, Alex. So let's get to some of the undrafted free agents because Melvin brought up Skinner. Let's get into some of the intriguing ones that I did like the Jets bringing in. And one of them, too, is intriguing because one actually was added today, and it's actually a Germany native from the European League and UCF football. That is German native, and I'm probably going to butcher this name, Leander Weigand. Now, he's interesting for a very big reason because when you look at these undrafted deals, the big thing you want to look at is the guarantee, because if they don't really put any guaranteed money into the pot, it's a lot easier for them just to walk out of camp. So usually when a team does a higher guarantee, they are very interested. So when I look at what they gave him $249,000 guaranteed and a $234,000 base signing plus a $15,000 signing bonus. And I think the big thing with this is, to me, they view him as a practice squad player this year that they hope can eventually become a member of the 53 roster. So the big thing with him, though, that really impresses is the strength. And this is a team that wants to be physical. He bench pressed 225, 38 times at the at his pro day. Once again, 225 pounds, 38 times. So if you're curious how much that is, that's 5 more bench presses than any other player in this draft. Now, again, is bench pressing going to mean you're a great tackle? Not necessarily, but it's clear that the Jets look at Weigand. Again, I'm hoping I'm pronouncing that right because, again, it is German, that they view Weigand as a very interesting developmental prospect. And sometimes you look at like the Eagles, they did this with, I believe, the rugby player a couple of years ago. And I look at Weigand, 6'6", 318. That's a big dude. That is a big dude with a lot of benches. And the big thing, too, is I look at the measurables he has. One of the most impressive things is his wingspan. He has got an incredible wingspan of 80 inches. That is a big, big dude. So he will definitely be someone that we will keep an eye on in camp. Another interesting guy is Peyton Page from Clemson. who they just recently added. He's a defensive tackle. And again, when I saw that, a lot of Jet fans were like excited because they actually got a defensive tackle. So here's the thing with him. He is a former 4-star recruit. So he was highly touted out of high school. He was more of a rotational guy until his final year at Clemson this year as a senior. And what's interesting is this is a guy that I do think that you can tell why Aaron Glenn and the staff like him, because they are looking for guys that are workers and guys that are dedicated. So a great story about Page is he showed up at Clemson at 395 pounds. He became serious about getting in better shape, though, and he has lost more than 100 pounds, getting down to his playing weight now about 300. He has some bouncy quickness. I mean, he's a guy that he needs to work on making more of an impact in the pocket. He got buried on the depth chart. He flashed some of that potential on his senior tape. And again, the production wasn't necessarily there, but you wonder at some of these big programs, maybe that there are guys like this that didn't get a full opportunity. They had to wait their turn. And maybe this is a guy that can break the 53 roster. Again, he's going to have a great opportunity with the Jets with the lack of defensive tackles they have. Another intriguing one, I'll get back to your questions in a second. I mean, there's a couple I really wanted the Jets to go after. Nick Nash was one. Jared Ivey was another. I think one of the big ones is definitely Donovan Edwards from Michigan. I mean, this was a guy that had a draftable grade. He was more of a part-time player at Michigan, which to me is also a good thing because when I get a running back from college, I want to make sure they still have tread on the tire and they're not completely burned out. I mean, that's one of the things with some of the Alabama running backs that came out under Nick Saban is by the time they came out, they were just worn out. It's funny because he had a great sophomore season. I mean, he looked like he could be a top 100 pick at one point, but the last two seasons struggled a bit, went from 7 yards a carry in 2022 to 4 in 2023 and 2024. Again, Michigan also, since Harbaugh left, is going over some major turnovers. You also wonder how that has to play in it. Hyper-aggressive attacking at the line of scrimmage. He doesn't have patience, which is the problem. He doesn't understand. Like, he hits that hole like a bat out of hell. The problem is he doesn't have the patience to sometimes let the play develop. The big thing I really like about Edwards is his pass-catching ability. This is a guy, when he got out in space, he could make some plays. He has really good hands for a running back. He lined up at the slot, even as a receiver. So this, to me, is an intriguing depth piece because we're talking about pass catchers for the Jets. And I'm curious to see how this team's going to look, especially when you add Edwards, who's really one of the best pass-catching backs in this entire draft, and that's really rare for a running back. I mean, he's a change-of-pace back with receiving upside. And one of the questions we keep getting in here, and we've talked about ad nauseum for especially since the draft ended, was how are the Jets going to get wide receiver production? And one of the things could be, well, maybe they're going to get it from their running back position. Maybe this is a team that's going to lead in potential targets for running backs. And it's not just straight out of the backfield. Maybe we'll see Breece line up in the slot more this season because, again, he can be a mismatch, especially on some of those linebackers. Maybe this is a opportunity where you look at guys like Edwards. Edwards is a very good pass catcher. Maybe they view him as a bit of a kind of a hybrid slot receiver that they can deploy in certain sub packages. I think Malachi Corley is going to be a big X factor on this team. And depending on his development, if he has a big year 2 jump, Corley could certainly be an impactful player on this team. And the big thing too, is I do think they could add a receiver in this next round of free agency, but we also have to wonder how they're going to deploy the running backs and the tight ends. I'm very curious to see how they do that. This is a good one from Audition. I don't necessarily think they panicked. My thoughts, Audition, are when I looked back at where the Bills jumped the Jets, there wasn't necessarily, and I'm going to just to make sure I'm getting this all correct, I'm going to bring up the exact draft order. The one was the defensive tackle for Kentucky. I believe that's in round 3, but the Jets seem very excited about getting the great value with the corner there. I'm trying to remember, did the Bills jumped 41. I was more concerned at that point that they were going to take Mason Taylor at that point. Like, I was like, can you imagine that they're just going to get Mason Taylor now they have 2 big tight ends to throw to? Yeah, they traded up for TJ Sanders. The thing with that one is Sanders is someone the Jets had their eye on, but to me, it felt like Mason Taylor was going to be the pick, even if TJ Sanders was on the board. So I know they jumped in round 2. Again, guys, help me refresh my memory. I know round 3, what was the day 3 pick that they jumped? I'm just going through pick by pick right now. 3 Bills jumped to get Landon Jackson, the edge from Arkansas. I still think AZ Thomas would still probably have beat the pick. But again, I'm just checking right now. I don't think it was necessarily a panic thing, too. It wasn't like they jumped in front. As we salute the good old Danger Zone. Again, give him a like and subscribe as well. Good to see you. Danger Zone is here as well. We're going to find out, Joe the Jet. I think he is someone that this is the right decision, in my opinion. When I look at this draft, there's a lot of kids coming out that are older than Justin Fields, and Justin Fields has NFL experience. To me, this is a kid that I would rather take the shot, and recent history has shown us that guys who have been in the league, who were drafted early with incredible talent, tend to find it, or you have a better chance of getting something out of them, like a Baker Mayfield, a Sam Darnold, Geno Smith later in their career than with these rookies. And especially with this rookie class, outside of maybe Sanders. In my opinion on Sanders is the Jets just didn't want the noise. They went through 2 years with Aaron Rodgers. They just didn't want to deal with the noise. And look, if Sanders turns out to be a very good quarterback, then the Jets are going to look foolish for not taking him in the 4th round or the 5th round potentially. But overall, I think the Jets are going to go into the season with Fields. And if it doesn't work out, they're going to go for a quarterback in a much deeper draft class next year. That's just how I feel it's going to go. Day 3 was unnecessary trade ups and drafting players higher than their grade. F grade for day 3. Again, day 3 to me was a bit weird for the Jets, Tony. I'm not gonna lie. I think most people, if I'm honest, I hate the grades because we don't know how these players are going to be. We don't know how they're going to fit, and we don't know how the Jets are going to use them. I think after a full season with this coaching staff, with this defense, it's easier to see what kind of players are going to fit in the roles. We don't really know yet. The big thing with day 3, and I keep saying this, it's not necessarily about and I might do this next year for my draft grade guide, because I know we put 4th round, 5th round, 6th, 7th rounders, and I know a lot of people had a 5th or 6th round grade on Smith. The big thing is it wasn't like the Jets were taking guys that we thought were going to be undrafted free agents. That to me would have been a concern. Again, Smith to me was a bit of a reach at the time. But if the Jets really like the kid and the Jets really think they can develop him and this coaching staff thinks they can, then they're going to take him. They're not going to risk it. And look, the Jets maybe felt that there was a team that was going to take him before they could get back on the board. The trade up for the safety I thought was a good trade. I know the edge from Miami is that's another one where some of the Jet fans are just scratching their heads a little bit. But look, they got a defensive end, a rotational piece. And I guess the biggest frustration, and Melvin brings up the point, and again, I'll get to some more of the undrafted free agents. I mean, we do know that they did bring in Peyton Page from Clemson. I'm very fascinated because this free agency period right now, too, will be, if the Jets come away with a big defensive tackle in this next wave of free agency, or if the Jets add like a rotational edge and a D tackle, I think Jet fans will feel a lot better about this draft class. The biggest thing I keep looking at, Melvin, and again, I'm not in the Jets building. I don't know what they're thinking necessarily for this roster, but the thing I keep going back to is maybe they're higher on Leonard Taylor II than we were. Maybe they look at his tape and they feel he will be even better in their scheme. Because don't forget, Taylor last year was viewed as potentially even at one point being a day 2 pick. And I do think he showed some flashes last year. The big thing with him is going to be, can he be consistent? Can he continue to develop? And can he fit in the system? Now, I look at the defensive tackle class, and again, I do think it's a bit of a head scratcher. And when you looked at it, it seemed like the Jets were visiting D tackles who kind of were up there. And I know a lot. One of the big ones was Ty Robinson, who went immediately after Arian Smith for the Eagles. Like, a lot of people were like, why didn't the Jets draft him? Well, the Jets didn't really do a lot of homework on him. And it's clear that the Jets, when they met with people, those were the people they were interested. Sometimes there's smoke screens, but it's clear that a lot of the Jets that they drafted were mostly guys that they were looking at. And look, this is an interesting first draft because, again, the staff is still coming in. You still have a lot of the extra scouts. You still have the scouts from the previous regime. I'm very curious to see, especially now that we've gotten through the scouting period, do the Jets completely revamp the scouting department after the draft in the coming weeks? That's certainly on the table. But look, I get it. Like, Ty Robinson is someone that I know a lot of Jet fans were curious that they didn't go after, that they didn't draft. Just looking in the day 3 range where they were picking, I'm just seeing who was potentially on the board again, just so I can refresh my memory. Tonka Hemingway was someone, a defensive tackle. Josh Farmer was probably the frustrating one because he's a guy I really liked. And of course, New England freaking drafted him in the 4th round. If I could have redone the draft again and I could have drafted him in the 4th round, taken Smith with one of the 5th round picks, and maybe get rid of one of the Miami players, that might have been a little bit better. But again, this is who the Jets wanted. This is who the Jets targeted. And I understand it. It's a deep defensive tackle class, and I don't have an answer. And I don't think the Jets will tell you. They were asked about it. They kind of just like blew past the question, Melvin. And I don't know. Maybe they felt that they had bigger holes at bigger areas. Maybe they felt that they were getting better value at other places. They technically did draft the defensive end, but I get it. You wanted a big, mauling, run-stuffing tackle. But maybe every time they came up to the board, the players that were on the board were higher than the defensive tackles. I mean, Josh Farmer to me was a guy I would have taken in the 4th round. They didn't. But we'll see what they do. We will certainly see it. Again, guys, hit the like and subscribe button so you don't miss any of the latest content. Another intriguing player was Dean Clark from Fresno State. Multiple visits with the Jets. This is someone they clearly had their eye on. 4 seasons at Kent State and 2 at Fresno. 6-year player in college. 146 tackles over the last 2 seasons, 4 picks, 2 sacks, a very versatile defensive back. Clark, to me, is could be this regime's Tony Adams. And the reason I would say that is he's an undrafted kid, but he's someone that I would definitely keep an eye on to make the 53, especially because of how much research they did on him. They did a lot. Like, they did a ton of work on him out of Fresno State. I mean, he is someone that it can move all over the defense. He can play in the box. He can play the single high. He's a very decisive player, very good with his angles. He's rangy and physical. I don't think he necessarily has the speed that you really want. He did have an Achilles injury in 2022, but started the last 24 games since then. I mean, this is a guy that, again, seems like a chess piece, and it seems like we see the type of safety that Aaron Glenn wants. He wants very sharp safeties. He wants guys that take good angles. He wants guys that can move around, be interchangeable, can play high, low, in, out. And Tony Adams, again, I think is a better athlete, but I don't know if he is the guy that can come downhill like some of these other guys. So, like, to me, that is a guy, especially when I see how many visits they had. I do think that is someone that definitely to keep an eye on in terms of the undrafted free agency. But again, just to go over basically all the undrafted, we'll go through all of them. And again, comments below. Make sure to use the super chat if you want to make a donation or jump to the front of the line. Mentioned by Melvin earlier, Quinn Skinner. 6'4", 203-pound receiver. Again, they gave him a lot of guarantees, but they'll give him a chance to crack the room. And again, being at that size, you wonder if that's someone that's going to potentially crack the roster. I think Edwards could crack the roster as like a fourth running back. I wouldn't be surprised if the Jets carry 4 running backs on game day. We talked about Jordan Clark, the corner from Notre Dame, son of ESPN analyst and former NFLer Ryan Clark. Bit smaller at 5'9", nickel corner, older at 24. Very high football IQ and leadership. But again, tested poorly as pro day. So we'll see. Defensive tackle, they went with Fortuna Mulba, the tackle from West Virginia. Former Penn State who transferred to West Virginia, 309 pounds, one technique, run stuffer, which is basically what the Jets needed. And, originally from Liberia. And, of course, the Jets had to add a quarterback. They didn't go too far. Brady Cook, Missouri. Again, Armand Membu played there. I think the thing they look at with him is the size is 6'2", played 40 games as a starter, solid athlete, trouble with decision-making, trouble with pressure. Again, he's got enough athleticism. I think it's that this is a guy that they brought in to try to groom to eventually be the backup after Tyrod Taylor leaves, assuming after next year. So I do think that is someone to keep an eye on. The Jets also added Jamal Pritchett, the wide receiver from South Alabama. Bit on the other side, 5'8", 175, speedy slot receiver, bit of a punt returner. I think it'll be tough for him to crack the lineup, maybe a practice squad player. Aaron Smith, the linebacker from South Carolina State, led the MEAC with 92 tackles. Shaq Leonard's a linebacker that's come from that program. 234 pounds, a bit bigger of a linebacker. The big thing, though, is his lack of speed, 4.7 40 at the pro day. But you got to see, again, Aaron Glenn talks about playing speed. Jared Bartlett, the edge and linebacker from Cincinnati, led the Cincinnati with tackles his only year there. A all Big 12 honorable mention, leading the Bearcats in tackles for locks, and had 7.5 sacks. Played a bit of off-ball linebacker and an edge rusher, a bit of an undersized 4-3 end, but maybe he's one of those pieces that the Jets look at as maybe a depth piece that can play a little bit of linebacker, a little bit of edge. We'll see. Offensive line, Gus Hartwig from Purdue, big at 6'5", 309 pounds, 50 starts. 23-year-old. Again, Jets are pretty good at the center position. I think the big thing for him is can he play a little bit of guard and be one of those interior linemen? Because, again, he has experience at Purdue playing guard, primarily, though, was a center. So it will definitely be easier. And, again, Demir Miller, the wide receiver from Rutgers, Pennsylvania native, from Monmouth, local kid. School records for catches, 90 and over 1,200 yards receiving. Bit of a tweener, 5'11", 4.37, 40-yard dash. The big thing, like the other Jet speeds they draft, was the drops. And Caden Davis from Ole Miss, Caden Davis was a kid who might have even gotten drafted out of Ole Miss. Was a semifinalist for the Lou Groza Award, 24-29 on field goals, including his long of 57, made over 80% of his field goals over 2 years. Again, Davis probably is one of those kids. Again, we'll see how training camp goes. We'll see how it goes in the preseason, especially with how he does with the kicking. But we all know what the Jets happened with their kicking situation last way was very frustrating. Danger Zone. Bills guys go on the D tackles. Look at their selections round 2 and 4. I will say Danger Zone round 4 might have been the place where that could have been a defensive tackle the Jets were looking at. I still would say this. Round 2 to me would, if it came down to both those players, if they were still hypothetically on the board, I still think the Jets would have taken the tight end at that point. I think they were going very offensive heavy early and making sure that they fill out the offensive side of the ball. Now, when you look at round 4, where they went with Deion Walker, the Jets had a little bit of interest maybe in Walker. And I also kind of wonder, too, if that's why they went with Arian Smith, because maybe they had intel that the Bills were interested in him, or there was another AFC East team interested in him. I mean, that's a question I would have loved to ask in the press conference. I mean, they asked why they drafted Arian Smith, but if I was in that presser, I would have been like, hey, you got jumped a couple times by the Bills. Was this a situation where, again, on a lot of draft boards, he's viewed as a 6th-round player, but did you have intel, or did you have a intuition or a hunch that a team would jump you the next time so you wouldn't be able to get Smith? I mean, I think that's a legitimate question, but I would agree potentially in the 4th round danger zone. The 2nd round, I still think they would have gone with Taylor there. Yeah. Tony not drafting DT was a terrible choice. Again, they did add a couple of undrafted players at the D tackle position. A lot of it then comes down to what they view of Leonard Taylor II. And I also am curious about this free agency period at 4:00 today. If they add one of these defensive tackles or these veteran defensive tackles, I think people will feel not great, but I do think people will be a little bit better as well. Let's see. Not to mention Ruckert. I'm not sure what you meant by that danger zone in terms of Ruckert. Bro, Edwards and the D tackles are the hits. Are we talking? I'm trying to make sure, Mickey, is that basically just a little clarification there so I know. Brady Cook is actually the 2nd best quarterback in the draft. I don't know about that. I do think he has a chance to be a good backup. Surprised the Jets didn't draft the D tackle guard. They didn't sign either Simpson, AVT with limited cap space. It'll be curious. I think the Jets want to see both of them play. Again, I think Garrett and Sauce will be the first ones to probably get the extensions. Hot take here. If I had to guess, I almost feel Simpson gets the extension before AVT. And the reason is he's had a better durability history than AVT. Now, again, I know a lot of us will look back and go, whoa, well, AVT's been here, and when he's healthy, he's been good. But, I mean, we're talking about he almost lost, I'm trying to think how many games. He played 7 games when he got injured the Broncos the first time. I think, what was it, 6 or 5 games the second year. So, I mean, there was a span where AVT played about 12 to 13 games in a 2-year span. So I'm curious if the Jets are worried about the long-term health, especially being a lower body or Achilles injury. So again, I think Simpson, hot take, he might be the one up there too. Melvin, they gave an update without giving an update. They basically said that they're looking at the injury, that they don't discuss injured players. My biggest thing is I will not really talk about Jordan Travis until I see Jordan Travis on the field. Because, again, we have to remember that this is a kid that's coming off an absolutely gruesome injury in college that in some cases has ended careers. And the staff last year, again, did a bang-up job, really with a great job. They rushed his injury last year, and he got banged up again, and again, I understand it. They rushed the rehab because they almost wanted to show what he could do maybe during the season. So my big thing with Travis is they're not giving any updates. And again, I think they're not going to give you an update until he's 100% healthy. But again, we don't know about that. Yeah, guys, make sure to hit that like and subscribe so we can get more Jets fans in here, so we can get more great Jets content. Arizona in the 3rd was too good of a value not to take, but I feel Kyle Williams getting selected right in front of us by the Pats probably had something to do with it. Look, I still think the Jets had a really good first 2 days of the draft. Rounds 4 through 7, I think, are the ones where people are raising a little bit of eyebrows. But, I just don't think that, again, looking at the comments, I don't think Jordan Travis is healthy. I don't. And I think that the Jets, and again, this is a regime that didn't draft him. They're going to give him an opportunity. But if he can't play or he can't get healthy, I mean, Easy. Thanks for the clarification, Rico. I appreciate it. Develop the Martinez package and Eli Smith instead, Butterfinger, Gibson, and Lazard. Yeah, that will definitely be intriguing to see. I think that the Jets are bringing in a lot of bodies right now. I'm curious as to see who they bring in. Now, if we were to also look at the fifth day of the draft, I'm curious to see who was also on the board when a couple of these picks were selected. So we know the Jets basically stayed at the U, basically, for round number 5. Just popping in here really quick. Yeah, Phillips went to Miami at 143. Ty Hamilton from Ohio State. That was one I was hoping the Jets could pull off in round 5. Let's see, round 5. Let's see. On the board when Francisco was picked, Mitchell Evans then went. Let's see. A surprising one, too. I think a little bit surprising with the Francisco pick. One guy I'm curious that they didn't draft because he went 3 picks later was Oronde Gadsden II, the tight end from Syracuse. So I'm guessing the staff is higher on Ruckert than we are because it seems like, again, they added Stone from the Chargers. But I was a little surprised they didn't double dip at the tight end as well because this is such a deep tight end class. I know Torrey Horton, one of the favorites. I believe Melvin, if I'm wrong, Melvin, you can let me know. I know Torrey Horton was on the board as well, who was someone that a lot of Jets fans were inquiring about. Let's see who else was on the board. Jackson Hawes, the Dom C special, was on the board. And then the Jets ended round 5 with, of course, Tyler Barron, who they trade up to get. So let's see who was on the very board at the top of round 6, who could have maybe been in play at the D tackle position. Let's see. Pegs from Mississippi. They didn't do a lot of research on him. Kyle McCord was still on the board. Again, I think if people want a quarterback, they were disappointed he wasn't selected. Jalen Reed. I know that he's someone they did a lot of work on safety, but they already drafted safety. Tim Smith from Alabama. Warren Brinson from Georgia. I mean, one guy that I was hoping they'd bring in because they had him for a visit and he made it to the undrafted was Nazir Stackhouse, the massive D tackle from Georgia. And I'm a little surprised, too, because it seemed like the Jets were doing a lot of SEC or ACC picks. I'm a little surprised Stackhouse didn't make the undrafted party for the Jets. So, again, guys, make sure to comment in the chat. Give us your updates. Give us free agents you want the Jets to target. Super chat to jump to the front of the line. But again, I think the Jets undrafted period, I thought they did pretty well. A couple of guys I could really see being here is Darius Smith. Again, old at 32, but a defensive end, fills a need in that room, understands the defense. I think Raquan Davis is still young enough at 27. He brings intrigue. Amari Cooper and Keenan Allen, I'd love to add them, but again, I'm not sure if they're going to hold out for a better opportunity or a team that has a better shot at the postseason. I know a lot of people have brought Fatu Kasi, but again, 30. His production was declining last year. I don't know if that was injury or age, but I don't think the Jets are going to do that. I think they'll take a Sean Smith just because he knows Aaron Glenn's system. Isaiah Simmons, the linebacker, still 26 years old, could be an intriguing play as well, especially if the Quincy negotiations do not go well. That is someone I would also keep an eye on. But I'm interested to see what they do. I also will caution people that I think they'll make a move or two. I don't think this is going to be a situation because even though the comp picks are now off the table, that you're going to see the Jets sign 3 or 4 players in the next 48 hours. If they sign 1 or 2, I think that will be ideal. But I also don't think just expect like, oh my God, like the comp restrictions are off. I'm going to go, they're going to get every player. They're going to go out and sign like 2 or 3 players right off the rip. If they do, that would be great. But I'm very curious to see how they handle that. But I'm also interested too. One storyline from the draft that I'm also very interesting too that one thing they announced at the draft was the rivalry uniforms. I wish they gave a little more clarification. So, since it's the AFC East this year, does that mean the Jets get one uniform for each series? Like, do they wear the same uniform, or do they have a home and away for Miami, New England, and Buffalo? Or is it one jersey for all 6 of those games? Like, I'm very curious, but I'm also interested too how that works. Because again, I know this seems a lot like the color rush from a couple of years ago, but I'm also fascinated too. Like, if you guys could pick the rivalry uniform, what would it be? Would it be the classic throwbacks like the Jets wore last year, like from the late 1960s, early 2000s with Parcells? Will it be like just an all green uniform? I'm very curious to see how that's going to play out. Like, I'm fascinated by that. I just hope the uniforms are good. Like, the color rush thing wasn't terrible. And I think the Jets are one of the few teams that actually look decent in the color rush because, again, they used the brighter Kelly green, which I liked. And they did the all-white uniform, I think, one year when they went up to Buffalo, because I remember. Again, I also loved the first year they did the red and green, and then, of course, they didn't realize, oh, yeah, a lot of people are red-green colorblind. Maybe that's not a good idea. Yeah, Stackhouse, I think, was an option. That's the thing is Leonard Taylor. Like, there's certain players on this roster that, to me, are big X factors if they take a step this season. If I had to pick one on each side of the football, they're going to be second-year players. It's Leonard Taylor on the defense, and it's Malachi Corley on the offense. If Corley can develop and have a sustainable role on this team, not even be the number 2, but be the number 3 that has a consistent role as the gadget guy, makes an impact every week, has 6 or 7 designed plays for him, that to me will be huge for this team. If you can get Taylor to be, I'm not saying a great defensive tackle, but an average starting defensive tackle who doesn't kill you in the run game, can give you a bit of a push and take a little heat off of Quinnen, that to me will be very important. So that to me is a player that we have to keep an eye on, and we'll see. What were your key takeaways from the draft? Mine were, number 1, despite what AG says about winning, this is a 2-year retool at minimum, and 2, AG has a ton of faith in his coaching staff. I agree with that. I think the big thing with winning now is I think that there isn't the Jets are not, in terms of talent, a lot better than they were last year. The big thing, though, is we can all agree this is arguably the worst coach team in the NFL. So even if Aaron Glenn and this staff is average, an average coaching staff, not even great, just average, you feel like the Jets are a game or two better with the coaching. I still believe that this is a team that, yes, this is a roster that has flaws, but this is a team that at least now, going into this season, I know what their identity is. I didn't know what their identity was the last 2 seasons. I haven't really known their identity the last 10 seasons. But last 2 seasons, it was our identity is Aaron Rodgers on offense and Robert Saleh's defense. Now I know that this is going to be a hyper-aggressive physical defense. It's going to blitz you a ton. They're going to play physical on the outside. And I know what the Jets are going to do. Next year, the Jets are going to run the ball. They're going to run the ball. They're going to run the ball. They're going to do play action. And guess what they're going to do again? They're going to run the football. I know what this team, at least their identity, is going to be. And I don't think this is a team that is going to get embarrassed by this coaching staff. So that, to me, will be very important. I do think that they will stick around and they will be in games. And the big thing for this team is to be competitive till December, so we have the chance of making the playoffs. But I do think that this is a team that is looking to build out this staff. And look, I think AG feels he's a teacher. I think he feels that he brought in good coaches. And one of the things with Detroit is I see a staff that really help players develop. And if AG can develop these players, if he can help these players get better and he can develop these rookies and they can make these rookies work, that will make this a lot faster. And I'm going to be asking for great coaches. Like, do I want this to be a top 10 coach team, like one of the 10 best coaches in the NFL? Absolutely. Who doesn't? I just want a coach that, and I feel about this with Eric Glenn, I feel like they're going to have a plan every week. With Robert Saleh in the last staff, it felt like there were times like they didn't have a plan. And when the plan went off the rails, they didn't know how to adjust to the plan. And how often did that defense last year? They just got gashed running the football. They never blitzed. It was just try to get home with 4. And when that didn't work, okay, well, we're done. And then last year, it was their identity was Aaron Rodgers playing pickup football in the backyard with Devontae and Allen Lazard. That's what it was. Melvin, the problem is the New Jerseys are the 80s jerseys. How does that work, Melvin? Is Joe Shane's job a little bit hot? Thoughts on Brandon Beane's comment? Just some off-topic chatter if you want. So can you give me what Brandon Beane's comments were, Danger Zone, just so I have the full context? Joe Shane's seat's still hot. It's still hot. I mean, again, the draft, the Giants fans should feel good about it. But if the Giants start off the season 2-4, 2-5, and again, I think the Giants still have an incredibly difficult schedule next year. The Giants' schedule is brutal, Danger Zone. Again, let me know about Brandon Beane's comments so I know what they were. Again, I'm surprised no one brought up Ulbrich yet. To be honest, I'm surprised no one brought up Ulbrich in that whole situation. Thank God we didn't. Thank God that didn't happen with the Jets. Like that is embarrassing. But just to give you an idea who the Giants' home opponents are next season, and they're led by Russell Wilson, Dallas, Philly, Washington. Maybe they win one of those 3 games. Probably Dallas. They play Green Bay. They play Kansas City. They play the Chargers at home. They play Minnesota at home. They play San Francisco at home. The Giants' home schedule, if they win 3 games, do you almost feel like that's an accomplishment? And then their road games outside the division. Chicago, Denver, Detroit, Vegas, New England, New Orleans. Not exactly an easy schedule. And the big thing I will look at, too, is I just feel like with this Giant team, they drafted Jackson Dart as a break glass in case of emergency. Because let's be honest, if they truly loved Jackson Dart to this extent, if they loved him that much, would they wait until the 25th pick to draft him? And I know they traded up for him, but you had a couple teams, like maybe the Steelers, maybe a couple of teams in front of them that could have drafted a quarterback. And now the big thing, too, is if Shedeur hits, or Shedeur better than Jackson Dart, did the Giants make a massive mistake? And the other thing, too, now is you have a quarterback room with Russell Wilson, Jameis Winston, Jackson Dart, and Tommy DeVito. Look, I think the Giants' defense is a lot better. I think that the Giants are going to have a great defense. The Giants have some fun weapons, but there's one thing they didn't really get better at that has been kind of a glaring hole. Do you know what that is? That's their offensive line. It's not great. Any not so obvious things that you want to see this coaching staff do this season? Mine is winning after an extended break. We're the only team that played worse after extra weeks. So coming out of a bye with a plan would be a good thing. I would say be in every game. Like there are still games where last year, and even with Aaron Rodgers, you felt this team either came out flat, wasn't ready to play, or they just like had no energy. They didn't have a pulse. Like I just want to see this team, even in a loss, I want to see this team come out there with energy from the first snap and come out there with a physical presence. The other thing I want to see is I want to see, a little bit of cockiness. I want to see a team that comes out there that feels like they are not going to just beat you, but they're going to physically beat you. They're going to take your will from you because of how well they can run the football. Let's see. Yeah, the media would have torn the Jets to shreds. And, my favorite thing is it's like, oh, yeah, there's no punishment for that. I'm like, I'm sorry, but I know it's a little bit late in the offseason, but that is so concerning. It makes you wonder, is that one reason the Jets defense was so bad? Was Jeff Ulbrich just leaving his laptop open around the facility, around NFL meetings, and people were just able to get access to it? But again, my favorite thing is, he's a kid. He's 21. And I know we do dumb things when we're 21, but you knew what you were doing, dude. You knew you were, and again, you let your friend do it, but you knew exactly what you were doing. And again, you knew you were going to get caught too, because not only were you dumb enough to make the phone call, but you were dumb enough to video it and then post it. You knew exactly what you were doing. I mean, stop it. Stop it. Beam was on a radio call right before he was on, overheard them blasting him for not getting a receiver, and he blasted them back since they scored 30 points per game. Since it was a live call. Look, let's see. Look, I think sometimes like people care too much what they say in the media. I'm just gonna look this up really quick. Was it like on a radio show with Brandon Beane? Like, I just want to know, like, I want to have the full context of it. Again, I don't really care about the Bills. So, let's see. So what they gave him for not drafting a receiver, they did take Caden Prather. I mean, look, I still think the Bills had a good draft. I mean, if there's a team that you felt like didn't need a receiver, like, probably was them. Look, I just get the feeling too, like, look, they scored 30 points per game. They have a great quarterback. The thing too, this was a receiver class that was good. It wasn't great. Last year was a great receiving class. This year was you had good receivers, but you didn't have anything like, wow, that's an unbelievable receiver. No, you had good. You didn't have great. So my big thing with this danger zone is if anything, I'm just glad that the Bean is just that frazzled. Like, look, you have the confidence in your draft. Like, if you feel like you are lashing after your draft, guess what? It was, the Bills are scoring points. Their offense is working. I mean, the Jets, it makes sense because, again, this is a defensive staff that didn't draft a defensive tackle. So I can understand why people are looking like that. And Bean does have a point. They score points. And here's the other thing. If the Bills are 6-2 at the deadline, guess what they'll do? If they need a receiver, what did they do last year? Oh, that's right. They traded for Amari Cooper at the deadline. If they need a receiver this year, I don't think the Bills, if they feel this is a Super Bowl roster, they're 6-1, they're 7-1, or they're 6-2, and some teams offering, especially in a draft where people are looking for good picks with the quarterbacks, there's like some 2-6 team at the time that has a good receiver. They're like, yeah, we'll take your second round pick. Yeah, we'll take your third round pick. Yeah, we're looking to get assets to maybe get a quarterback and we're going to be in the bottom 10. So I could see that easily happen. It's, look, I think Muji did have some backbone. I mean, look, they defended their picks. I know a lot of people, they probably are looking at social media, but look, I don't think they care. I don't think that they care what people, what we think of their picks. Their big thing is they have to hit on the picks. This wasn't like a pony show like last year where not only did the Jets trade up for Malachi Corley, but they did the draft day. Oh my God, it was him and no one else. We were going to come up to the first round to get him. We were so enamored. It was like, no. They just took players. They took players they liked, and they took players that they said, look, they're going to fit our scheme. They're going to fit the attitude we want to bring, and they're going to fit into this puzzle the way we feel. And I do think that they have a plan for the D tackle room. I think they have a plan to add maybe another weapon. But the thing, too, is we don't know what this roster is going to look like. We don't know what the scheme is exactly. We have ideas. We get the idea of what they're going to do. We have a hunch of what they're going to run defensively, a hunch of what they're going to do offensively. But until we see it on the field, we really will not know. We really will not know. Yeah, Dana, again, you can catch me on. I was on his show the first night of draft, so you want to go check out his live stream that we jumped in there as well. Apparently, I'm the only one that knows about Joe Hendry, though. So again, Dano, definitely great. Give him a like and subscribe. Make sure to give us anytime. Make sure to come on as well. Again, if you're also a Jets content creator and you want to be coming on through the offseason to discuss the roster, discuss the makeup, discuss potential trades and protect anything, I'm always open to having people on the channel. Reach out to me on social media. You can reach me at the handle at Rich Sports Talk on Twitter at any time. And again, guys, thank you so much for joining us. We'll probably be back on later this week, if especially the Jets add anyone in the free agency period, because we will give our breakdown, how they could fit into the scheme. I do think the Jets will add some pieces. The question is when and what pieces. I'm curious to see what they do. I know you are as well. But again, this is a long off season. We'll have plenty to talk about. And again, check out the community page because I have some fun ideas for videos. I think especially as we transition into more of the off season, look at more Jets history, potential uniform discussions. There's a lot more stuff we can do on this channel as we grow and expand it. But again, guys, thank you so much for joining us as always. If you're new to the channel, make sure to hit that like and subscribe button so you don't miss any of the latest, and also so you get informed with our community page. Because again, you guys help make the content for this channel. You get to pick the videos we do. So your voice is without question definitely heard on this channel. But until next time, I'm your host, Nolan Rich, and this is Rich Sports Talk. Thank you so much for joining us.